Good day, students. We are now going to talk about chapter 3, Hinduism. Let me share my screen. And slideshow. All right. Here we have the Om syllable, O-M or A-U-M, Om. This is the sacred syllable of Hinduism. It is considered the first word that's ever been spoken in some respects. It is the symbol of three, as you can tell, three gods and major gods in Hinduism, Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma. And you can see this in various places. People put tattoos of this on their arms, for instance. The early civilization of India is called the Indus Valley Civilization, also known as the Harappan culture. We have a geographical map of India here. India is actually in the green and the orange area. And we can see the Indus Valley Civilization, part of Pakistan as well, in the northwest aspect of or area of India. Harappa is sort of right in the center, and Mohenjo-daro is off to the west a little southwest. These areas were very mature in terms of what they offered the public. Look at these two pictures. One, you have a gridded street. This is happening in the Harappan culture. And then we have a model of the Indian culture, Mohenjo-daro. And look at those wonderful housing districts that you have. There are no housing districts like this in the world at this time. Probably the closest we have is the Roman culture at the turn of the century that built such amazing houses with bricks and such. So the late Harappan culture occurred between 2500 and 1600 BCE. And the earliest urban centers that I just showed you in the Indus Valley, they used irrigation of crops, for instance, urban planning, as you could tell from the pictures. They even had their own sanitation, their wells, and running water, gridded streets, and their focus in the late Harappan culture was an emphasis on trade. The religion of the Harappan culture is difficult to define still today. It's probably animistic in nature, as many religions were at the time. There are examples of terracotta figurines, and we have one on the right here. This is the mother goddess. The terracotta figurines connected to a mother goddess. They had other figurines of bulls, other human beings as well. So it's difficult to say this is the particular mother goddess of the religion. Something that this Harappan culture did in the Indus Valley Civilization that you don't have happening in Hinduism. You do not have cremation in the early parts of the Harappan culture. They buried their deads in coffins. Similar to the Egyptians, they provided food and other objects in the afterlife. So we see this in Egyptian culture. We also see this in the Indus Valley Harappan culture. So less focus on cremation and more focus on coffin burial. Something happened to the Harappan culture. It was this thriving community during this period, but it just sort of disappeared in many ways. It probably disappeared over time. We think of something that just goes extinct. It takes a long time for this Harappan culture to change. And that's what I want to say mostly, that the Harappan culture declined because of migration and because of flooding. And it shifted the Harappan culture to other areas within India. There are some outside forces called the Aryans, the Indo-Europeans, who did migrate to the region, and they also coexisted with the Harappan culture. Some scholars say the Aryan population conquered the region and instituted a harsh caste system to control the population. That's one view. And other scholars also claim that the Aryan migration into the region is a myth, that India has always had this wonderful system of beliefs and values. The truth is, it's what do I believe? I'm just giving you the the information. I certainly believe that migration happened, flooding happened, climate change happened, and people move in and out of areas all the time. So this Aryan population actually did move into the area. And this area, Indo-European population also moved into Greece and Rome and all those places too. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, but when you talk about Indian scholarship, they get into arguments over this. We move to the next sort of people and communities within the area through history. So the 2000 BCE, still a long time past, 4,000 plus years ago, we have the Vedic culture. The Vedic culture focused on tribal affiliation instead of the urban developments that the Harappan cultures offered. So we moved to sort of kinship, tribal affiliation. And this tribal kinship is called the jana, J-A-N-A, jana. Tribal kinship units ruled by a warrior chief, some kind of administrator, and it was passed down from father to son or from uncle to nephew. A lot of these things were passed down hierarchically, patriarchally. Later in the Vedic culture, these janas organized around geographical location instead of kinship. So there was a shift of change once the geography was established and once the Vedic system was less nomadic. But the nomadic Aryan culture did raise cattle and held them in high esteem, thus the cow as the spirit animal of the Indian population. A little bit about the Vedic religion. Each jana contained priests, and those priests initiated the chants and charms for preservation of the jana. So the priests, they did all the magic, the preservation, the chants, the prayers. Here we have a picture of the god Indra in the center, and he's being offered soma in this particular ceremony. Soma is this intoxicating beverage that they use during rituals. And obviously, if you have an intoxicating beverage, you can hallucinate. And hallucination is kind of a preserved view of this shamanistic reality of the priests. We do have animal sacrifice that occurred as well within the Indian population, within Hinduism, within the Vedic tradition. But to be honest, the main offerings tended to be soma, which I mentioned, the intoxicating beverage, ghee, which is butter. You can buy that at Costco, actually, ghee, honey, and milk. Also, if you go to a Vedic temple in, let's say, Oklahoma City, you would bring bananas, apples, and grapes, and strawberries, and things like that to offer to the gods or goddesses. We have a pantheon of gods in the Vedic tradition that is very similar to Greco-Roman mythology. They just have different names, and then they come up with different, different connections to the land, the geography of India. So you don't have the elephant so much in Greece. You have other animals in Greece, but in this Vedic tradition, you have the elephant. And you have on top of that elephant, the highest god in Vedic culture, which is the god of war, Indra. So the god of war and thunder invoked by Jana before going to war or protecting the Jana. That's a tradition within this particular Vedic god. This Vedic god Indra created the earth by shaking his hammer. That is a good example of Thor as well. There's some mythology of Thor and Indra. There's a connection between those two gods. Thor is from the Norse tradition. Here we have Indra seen on a golden chariot or white elephant. Here we have a white elephant. So every god or goddess has some kind of animal that's connected to them, to their avatar. Second in command is Agni. Here we have Agni on the right here. Like Hermes, Agni is the messenger god. He mediates between humans and the spiritual realm. While Indra is the warrior god, Agni represents the priestly realm and has the ability to forgive humans. So you pray to Vedic for your sin. I'm sorry, you pray to Agni for your sins. You pray to Indra to beat somebody else at war. Here are some other Vedic gods, and I have a picture of Vishnu and his consort Lakshmi. Vishnu is blue here, and Lakshmi is right next to him. Varuna is the god of sky and justice. Vishnu is the god of cosmic order. Vishnu is the most celebrated god in India tradition now, even though you have all these pantheons of gods. Yama is the god of death and ruler of the afterlife. And Duspiter is the father of gods. That sounds very much like Zeus. Even the name Zeus, Peter. And Usha, goddess of the dawn. So Sanskrit is the language that we're speaking here, and Sanskrit is very much connected to Latin, actually. At some point, the gods and goddesses continued to be worshipped, but there are three gods and goddesses that became a major proponent of the Hindu tradition. First is Brahma. Brahma is not really worshipped. It's rarely worshipped. He is rarely worshipped. He's the creator of the universe. Next is Vishnu, which we just saw in blue, is the preservation of the universe, and about 75% of Hindus worship Vishnu. Then we have many incarnations or rebirths of Vishnu, and the Buddha is considered an incarnation of Vishnu according to the Vedic tradition and the Hindu tradition. Finally, we have Shiva, who is on the right here, and he. This looks female with the hair, but it's a he. He is the destroyer god, seen positively as part of the cycle of birth and rebirth, and death is very much considered a part of the divine process. And here I am. This is Professor Inglet at a museum in Amarillo, Texas. And I went through this museum, and there was Buddha off to the back, and then there was Shiva in this particular museum in Amarillo, Texas. I include this because India, Hinduism is a world religion, and it's throughout the United States as well. The Vedic text contains sacred chants, poems, and ritual formulas of the priestly class. And the oldest text in the Hindu tradition, and one of the oldest known in the world, dating back to at least 1500 BCE. So the Vedas are considered some of the oldest texts in the world that can be translated. The Harappan culture did have language, written down language, but it's still not clear what the words mean. We have the Rig Veda, that's the oldest and largely focused on the hymns to the gods. We have the Sama Veda, that's the chants for animal sacrifices. We have the Yajur Veda that records the ritual formulas for priests during sacrifices. And we have the Atharva Veda, and that's magical spells for healing or causing enemies to suffer. Here's a reading from the Veda. From fervor kindled to its height, eternal law and truth were born. Thence was the night produced, and thence the billowy flood of sea arose. From that same billowy flood of sea, the year was afterwards produced. Ordainer of the days, nights, Lord over all who close the eye, Datur, the great creator, then formed in due order sun and moon. He formed in order heaven and earth, the regions of the air and light. You might compare that to the Judeo-Christian tradition of the beginning of the universe. Very similar, is it not? Again, we have a reading from the Veda, whose perfect ecstasies are wide, profound, victorious, and give joy in the field where heroes win. Him, Indra, when the spoils of war are staked, men call to be their advocate. They who have Indra win the day. Men honor him with stirring songs and magnify with solemn rites. Indra is he who giveth case. Indra is priest and rishi. He is much invoked by many men and mighty by his mighty powers. All right, we'll stop there. That's the Harappan culture, and that is also the Vedic culture. We will talk about the Upanishads in the next video. Thanks for coming.